Hello, Justin.
Jason,
How's it going?
it's going good. It's going good. So I have a question.
Oh, yes?
Is Nick? I think his name is Nikosh. Is Nikosh a good person to put your trust and hope in?
No. No, he is not. Is he even real?
I don't think so. I mean, I would say almost certainly no.
I think there's a little foreshadowing, maybe. Hold your horses. Well, I believe Nikosh makes an appearance long about later on, right?
Yeah, way later on.
Okay. Yes. Some choose to put their trust in such a one thing.
Whatever,
Okay.
yeah, a non-existent being.
Yeah. There, you might have gotten
I
a
think
clue
I
there.
got it.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, did you miss me last week?
Yeah, well, you should have seen it. I mean, you could still, just a plug, you guys can still pick up a Thanksgiving crossword. It's still back there on the podium.
Ooh, Thanksgiving crossword.
The
Okay.
Thanksgiving crossword. Yeah, I basically just went through all of the deals and had a nice little chat about what the Bible has to say about Thanksgiving.
Awesome.
So that's what we did last week, and it was obviously Thanksgiving. So looking
Good
forward
deal.
to it. This is the last Isaiah lesson that I will be doing for quite a while, as in
Okay.
like the leader of. Because we've got one more. So Jason will be our leader next week. I think that'll be the last time we look at Isaiah for a little while.
Yeah, you never know. I might stretch it out into a couple lessons since we
well,
have a couple weeks in December left.
yeah.
And I need to be verbose to fill the time before we start our next quarter in
All right.
January. So exciting things coming up. The elders will be making some comments Sunday the 11th, I believe. Is that the date? After morning services regarding some plans and things for the upcoming year. And we'll be talking more about things like Bible classes and themes and banners and exciting happenings that are going to be going on. You don't even know what that, you don't even know.
I don't even know.
You
I
don't
mean,
even know.
I'm just as excited
And
as you all are. I can just tell it on your faces. You
The
guys are just-
excitement is palpable.
The excitement is there. All right. Well, anyways, we'll jump in. Today we're playing the game of My Dad is Bigger and Can Beat Your Dad Up. Just kidding. It's my king is bigger than your king.
There you go.
That's one of the things I was thinking about, when this lesson, at least the title or whatever is My King is Better Than Your King, or Bigger than Your King, or My King Can Beat Your King. But I thought it was like that, my dad is bigger than your dad, and I am afraid to say my kids will rarely ever win that battle there. So anyways, at least they'll have a king that's bigger than any other king. So anyways, my king is better than your king, Isaiah 36 and 37. So some objectives for tonight. Hopefully we'll be able to, by the end, show how Isaiah 1 through 39. It's ending in a climactic battle that involves the supremacy of God and how he values faith. And, we'll look at a couple keywords tonight that really reflect this. Hopefully by the end of the night we can reflect on what it really means to rely on and trust in God. Because we've got some people that do, some people that don't. We'll look at a little bit of everything. And finally, be able to explain how God views human pride. And spoiler alert, the human pride is the king and his associates. So be ready for that as we go on. So the theme is, I guess if you had a handout, that the biblical God is the supreme God. So, I think we all know that, but this section really highlights that the biblical God he is supreme. So again, this is a really quick historical review that we've been going through for quite a while. The first third of our section starts with the Syro-Ephraimite War, and then there's this bridge where it talks about lots of different things, and then finally we're getting into the actual Assyrian siege. This is the introduction, I guess, and conclusion of the Assyrian siege tonight. Again, kind of reviewing, this is another, a little more of the historical details. Sennacherib invades, good old Snacky. Subdues 46 of the Judean cities and eventually ends up at Jerusalem. So he's just wrecked everybody. They're the last line of defense. They're on the last legs, the last stand. And Sennacherib is sending these emissaries tonight that we're going to read and calling for the surrender. This is that moment. This is that moment that we're looking at tonight. And Isaiah still calls for the trust in God, and we get to see that as well. So here's, I guess, the way that this kind of can be broken down easily, these last couple chapters, is there's a 3-act play. Act 1, there's the siege of Jerusalem. That's tonight. Act 2 is Hezekiah's illness. He gets sick. And then finally, the Babylonians visit, and Hezekiah sort of gets well. And then there's the prediction that, hey, Babylonians are coming. So anyways, that's way into the future. But tonight we're looking at the siege specifically. So the intro for this, Isaiah returns to narrative. So up until this point, he's been pronouncing woes. He's been talking about the end times. He's been prophesying and saying, just all of these different prophecies about really the end times and what's going on and different things. But he switches back. He switches back to narrative. And so that's what we're reading today, is a narrative of the events. And so no longer is it just kind of proclamations and prophecies, but it is a narrative of a story that is playing out before us. And when we study narrative, we need to focus on 3 things. We need to be able to read the entire story, maybe not necessarily from start to finish, but so that we find the context of the story that we're kind of plugging in. The narrative needs to be understood in what's happening, what's been going on, what's been shifting behind the scenes, and hopefully that's what we've been kind of building up for the last many weeks. I know those slides are kind of the same old, but we've been building the story, and here it is. Here is now what's going on. Assyria's at the gate. Jerusalem has been under siege, and they don't like that. So anyways, we're going to note special theological language that's used in the story and note repetitions. That's the way that Hebrew scripture and Hebrew, I guess, I don't know what the word is for it, but literature is the word. Hebrew literature emphasizes something. And so we're going to continuously read repetitions as we continue to get into it tonight. So Isaiah 36 and 37 can be divided into 9 parts. And don't worry, these will all show up on their own slide, so you don't have to write them all down now. But there's a couple parts. There's not necessarily back and forth, but Rabshakeh. I call him Rabble because I like to shorten things. That's Rabshakeh from Lachish, or Lachish, or however you say that, Lachish. So Rabble, I call him Rabble, but his name is Rabshakeh. And Eliakim, and then Rabshakeh replies again, and then there's lots of back and forth. We'll get into that as we move forward. So Rabble, that's Rabshakeh from Lachish. I don't know why I shortened that, but I did, and then I realized that's what you're going to write down in your papers. So anyways, he's Rabble. The taunt of the rabble. That's why, anyways, my jokes just aren't going through tonight. They're just
keep trying.
Way off. Okay, so we're going to read. Can you read Isaiah 36, 1 through 10? This is the first taunt by Rabshakeh.
The 36, 1 through 10. Now it came about in the 14th year of King Hezekiah, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, came up against all the fortified cities of Judah and seized them. And the king of Assyria sent Rabshakeh from Lachish to Jerusalem to King Hezekiah with a large army, and he stood by the conduit of the upper pool on the highway of the fuller's field. Then Eliakim, the son of Hilkiah, who was over the household, and Shebna the scribe, and Joah, the son of Asaph, the recorder, came out to him. Then Rabshakeh said to them, "Say now to Hezekiah, thus says the great king, the king of Assyria, what is the confidence that you have? I say, your counsel and strength for the war are only empty words. Now on whom do you rely that you have rebelled against me? Behold, you rely on the staff of this crushed reed, even on Egypt, on which if a man leans, it will go into his hand and pierce it. So is Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to all who rely on him. But if you say to me, we trust in the Lord our God, is it not he whose high places and whose altars Hezekiah has taken away, and has said to Judah and to Jerusalem, you shall worship before this altar? Now therefore, come make a bargain with my master, the king of Assyria, and I will give you 2,000 horses, if you are able on your part to set riders on them. How then can you repulse one official of the least of my master's servants and rely on Egypt for chariots and for horsemen? And have I now come up without the Lord's approval against this land to destroy it? The Lord said to me, go up against this land and destroy it."
So this is old Rabble, and he's really laying it on thick, talking to the, I guess, emissaries from Hezekiah, because we'll see that they run back and tell Hezekiah what's going on. But so Rabshakeh is coming and he's talking, just a couple notes that I wrote in the sides of my script, my New Testament or Old Testament here. When it talks about the 2,000 horses, that is Hezekiah, or that is Rabshakeh's, I guess his taunt to them. That's where it really kind of lays it on the line of, well, you can't even, I mean, I will give you 2,000 horses if you can even put 2,000 men on these horses. And so it's basically, we can assume from that they don't have 2,000 fighting men. And what we learn by the end of this chapter is Rabshakeh has 185,000. And so we've got 185,000 and 2,000. And so I don't know why this is a siege, why this is even happening if there's, they can't even muster 2,000 troops to fight this army. But again, Rabshakeh makes it about God. And he does that time and time again in his taunts. And at the very end of verse 10, it says, "The Lord has said to me." And I mean, I'm speculating here, but I'm pretty sure the Lord did not tell him that.
I think you're right. I think based on he spends all these verses saying, in verse 7, don't even put your trust in God. He's this God that you think you serve. He's nothing. And oh, by the way, your God told me to come take you out. And so he's playing both sides of the fence here. He's saying, first of all, don't trust your God. But if you still do trust your God, just know that your God told me to come do this. So he can't have it both ways, but he's trying to have it both ways. So, yeah. One other point of order, Lachish was actually a Judean city. So when he sends him from Lachish, that's the last city that they sieged and destroyed before they came to Jerusalem.
Okay.
So when the king of Assyria sends Rabshakeh from Lachish, he sends, okay, we're done here. And there are actually ruins at Lachish that you can that one can go to and observe and see the ramparts that the Assyrian army built up against the walls, see the remains of the siege engines and the stuff that's been they find arrowheads and they find all kinds of stuff there at Lachish from the siege where the Assyrian army destroyed what was essentially Jerusalem's southern flank. It was supposed to be the city that protected Jerusalem from invading armies. And Assyria wiped it out. So that tells you what kind of a pickle they're in as this is all unfolding.
So everything is crumbled around them. And so from the I guess study that we are involved in, they highlight parallels between Isaiah 7 and Isaiah 36.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we can, I guess, run back there and just point out a couple of different phrases that I thought was really interesting. Isaiah 7 verse 3, when this is, or I guess, so we'll start with the historical context for what this happened. In the days of, from chapter 7 verse 1, in the days of Ahaz, the son of Jotham, son of Uzziah, king of Judah, Rezin, the king of Persia, and Pekah, the son of Remaliah, the king of Israel, came up to Jerusalem to wage war against it, but could not yet mount an attack. So this is the Syro-Ephraimite war. Syria and Ephraim, the northern tribe, have come to wage war, and Ahaz is the king. We studied this quite a few weeks back. But verse 3 says, "And then the Lord said to Isaiah, 'Go to meet Ahaz, you and your son, at the end of the conduit of the upper pool on the highway to the washer's field,'" as the ASV reads. I think the field was called something different. So the parallels are they're meeting at the same spot, at the conduit of the upper pool of the washer's field. And so that's exactly where Rabshakeh sets up camp. And so I guess this is just, the best spot where all the armies go, hey, we should go set up there. Both of these parallels have the prophet Isaiah. Obviously, Isaiah is the one writing this book, but Isaiah shows up at different times. The Lord said, go to Isaiah, go and speak to them. And I guess in chapter 37, the servants of King Hezekiah came to Isaiah in 37 verse 5. So Isaiah is here in both instances. The invading ruler questions and challenges God. I don't know if you remember back in Isaiah 10, verses 6 through 10, God has, this is in the woe to Assyria. I think we might remember, woe to Assyria, the rod of my anger. Against the godless nation I sent him, the people of my wrath I command him. But he does not so intend, his heart does not think so. Verse 8 says, for he says, Assyria says, are not my commanders all kings? Like, is it not Calno like Karshmesh, not Hamath like Arpad, is not Samaria like Damascus? As my hand has reached to the kingdoms of the idols, whose carven images were greater than those of Jerusalem and Samaria, shall I not do to Jerusalem and her idols what I have done to Samaria and her images? And so both of the invading rulers, we just read from Rabshakeh was saying, why do you trust in God? God cannot deliver you. And Assyria, the before, was saying, we've destroyed all of the idols of everyone else. Who is God? Who is your idols going to stand up to us? So there are parallels there. And in both situations, Ahaz and Hezekiah are looking for military solutions. And so again, flipping back a couple pages, Ahaz relies on Assyria to come and conquer them. And Hezekiah, as we have seen in a couple chapters back, in verse 30 and 30 and 31, they were, Isaiah 30 verse 2 says, who sent out to go down to Egypt without asking for my direction, to take refuge in the protection of Pharaoh and seek shelter in the shadow of Egypt. And so again, even Rabshakeh is saying, Egypt isn't going to save you. Egypt is going to be of no help. They are a broken reed. And I just picture, an old man using a cane, and it just snaps and he falls over it and hurts himself. Because that's what Rabshakeh says. That's what Egypt's going to do. Even if they come to help, they're just going to stab you in the back. And so even Ahaz and Hezekiah in these both parallel situations are turning toward other nations. But I guess the question is, Ahaz is a bad king and Hezekiah is a good king. But in this specific instance, what is the difference?
Oh, that was a real question.
That was a real question, yeah.
Hezekiah trusts the Lord.
Yeah.
He says he will not test. He doesn't trust.
I think ultimately it's where their faith ends up. Even though Hezekiah, I'm always thankful for the flaws that we learn about the great people of faith in the Bible. Because if every great person of faith in the Bible was painted perfectly and they never had any flaws, I would have nothing to aspire to, because I can't be that person. But David had flaws, and Moses had flaws, and Abraham had flaws, and all these great people of faith had moments of weakness where they doubted or where they stumbled. And Hezekiah, I think, sees that army of 185,000 people destroying 46 cities in his nation, and sees his southern defenses fall, and he reaches out. He has a moment of doubt, and he wonders if Egypt will come to his rescue. Egypt is not willing to come to his rescue. So now what is his only choice left? Well, his only choice left is to rely on God. And he does. He commits to that course of action. Once that's the only course of action left to him, he commits to it. And sometimes that's what it takes for us as well. I mean, there are times when we look for relief in lots of other places, and then we finally reach the conclusion that God's really the only choice I have left here, and we need to commit to that choice, because we've tried other things and they didn't work. And so here I think we see that with Hezekiah, that he shouldn't have asked Egypt for help, but it worked out okay in the end, because in the end he committed to God.
And I think that's great. One of the things that I was thinking about specifically when I wrote those two verses on the board there is both of them are told. Hezekiah in 37 verse 6, Isaiah said to them, "Say to your master, thus says the Lord, do not be afraid." That's the exact same thing that 7 verse 4 says, "Be quiet, be careful, do not fear." So both of them are told, do not be afraid. But when God tells them that, how does the two verses there, Isaiah 7:3 and 37:1, how does Ahaz, I guess, hear that message from God? Isaiah 7:3 says, the Lord said to Isaiah, go out to meet Ahaz. 37:1 says, King Hezekiah heard it. He tore his clothes, covered himself, and went into the house of the Lord. One of them was seeking God. One of them had to have God come and tell him the news.
Yeah.
Hezekiah was one who turned to God, and that we'll see that at the end. Here's a parallel between Ahaz and Hezekiah. And Ahaz, God had to come and get him from the field and meet him and say, okay, do not be afraid. You've not turned to me, but I'm still going to rescue you. Hezekiah says, I'm turning to God. I've tried other things, but I'm turning to him now. And Ahaz sought him. And I think that, at least to me, was the biggest difference in the story. Just the flip between Isaiah went to Ahaz, but Hezekiah came to Isaiah.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And so the parallel to this story is in 2 Chronicles 32. And then there's, it's the same story. It's a little different details and a little bit, maybe more details in some ways in 2 Chronicles, more details in Isaiah in other ways. But 2 Chronicles 32, verses 7 and 8, be strong. The message gets to Hezekiah: be strong and courageous. Do not fear, be dismayed, because the king of Assyria, nor because of all the multitude which is with him. For the one with us is greater than the one with him. With him is only an arm of flesh, but with us is the Lord our God to help us and to fight our battles. And the people relied on the words of Hezekiah, king of Judah. And so that's actually Hezekiah speaking to the people after they see the army of Sennacherib at the gates, pointing to an army of 185,000, saying that's only an arm of flesh, but the one that's with us is greater. That's a remarkable statement of faith.
I think that also parallels with when the Syrians are surrounding Elisha, and
Right.
we know that
Yeah.
story, the chariots of fire that are around them. It's
Yeah.
like, well, who is with us is far greater.
Yep.
And so, again, this is another one of those stories. So, Rabshakeh has pronounced his taunt. He said, you guys can't even put forward 2,000 horses or 2,000 horsemen. Do not put your trust in God, because the Lord has told me to destroy your land. And so the response, as we'll see, is I just put Eli because I like to shorten things, but it's actually from Eliakim, Shebna, and Joah. But will you read their response from verses 11 and 12?
Yep. Then Eliakim and Shebna and Joah said to Rabshakeh, speak now to your servants in Aramaic, for we understand it, and do not speak with us in Judean in the hearing of the people who are on the wall. But Rabshakeh said, has my master sent me only to your master and to you to speak these words, and not to the men who sit on the wall, doomed to eat their own dung and drink their own urine with you?
Who?
Thanks for letting me read that one.
Yeah, just toss it up there. So anyway, their response is pretty much, as I kind of put it there, fear and propaganda kind of a thing. So they respond in fear, thinking that all the people on the wall can hear and understand you. And if they hear you and understand you, it's going to cause panic. Because they're going to know, or I guess they're going to hear, not know. They're going to hear you pronouncing all of this doom on us. And so talk to us in a language they don't understand. And so, I think in some respects, this is a very legitimate fear. There's 185,000 guys. There's, less than 2,000 in your own town, or however many you're actually able to muster. And them saying, you can't survive. And the guys out there are like, whoa, don't let them know that, because, we're trying to do this. But I think, as we just read, there's two different parts of the story. And in 2 Chronicles, Hezekiah was talking to the people, and the people were emboldened. The people understood, we talked about the arm of flesh, but the Spirit of the Lord is with us. And so, the people, at least at that point, were emboldened and strengthened. But these I guess, emissaries from Hezekiah are scared that, this isn't going to end well, and especially if they know what's happening, what's going on out here. And so, Rabshakeh is using this gross imagery to say you guys are doomed. I mean, there's no help for you. There's no hope for you. Just give up now. Honestly though, there's 185,000 guys at their army. I don't know necessarily. I mean, I guess walls were a very insurmountable task for them. But I mean, it just seems mind-boggling that that amount of people couldn't get into the city of God, and what ends up happening because of that. And so, Rabshakeh has responds, I guess, in this next little deal. This is his second sort of taunt. Will you read it? It's a little longer.
13 through 22. Then Rabshakeh stood and cried with a loud voice in Judean and said, "Hear the words of the great king, the king of Assyria. Thus says the king, do not let Hezekiah deceive you, for he will not be able to deliver you. Nor let Hezekiah make you trust in the Lord, saying, the Lord will surely deliver us. This city shall not be given into the hand of the king of Assyria. Do not listen to Hezekiah, for thus says the king of Assyria, make your peace with me and come out to me, and eat each of his vine and each of his fig tree, and drink each of the waters of his own cistern, until I come and take you away to a land like your own land, a land of grain and new wine, a land of bread and vineyards. Beware lest Hezekiah misleads you, saying, the Lord will deliver us. Has any one of the gods of the nations delivered his land from the hand of the king of Assyria? Where are the gods of Hamath and Arpad? Where are the gods of Sepharvaim? And when have they delivered Samaria from my hand? Who among all the gods of these lands have delivered their land from my hand, that the Lord should deliver Jerusalem from my hand? But they were silent and answered him not a word, for the king's command was, do not answer him. Then Eliakim, the son of Hilkiah, who was over the household, and Shebna the scribe, and Joah the son of Asaph the recorder, came to Hezekiah with their clothes torn and told him the words of Rabshakeh.
So again, we have another taunt by good old rabble, the rabble. Anyways, I just continue to read the Asaph the recorder, and I just can't get the image out of my head of 12-year-old me and just playing the recorder, raw recorder. But anyways, that's just something fun. Anyway, so rabble, again, this taunt is different than the first. Rabshakeh is now shouting to everyone. So, again, they could hear him, obviously, because of Eliakim's responses, speak to us in a different language so they can't understand. But now he has stood and called out in a loud voice. He is crying for all to hear now. This was no longer just a meeting of the special important guys. No, this is I want all of you on the hill and the wall to understand what I'm saying. Do not let Hezekiah make your trust in the Lord. And so, again, this is other, I guess, interesting things to note. Verse 14, 13 and 14. Hear the words of the great king, the king of Assyria. Thus says the king, do not let Hezekiah. It seems to me that they really think that there is a king, and their king is way better than whoever this Hezekiah guy is. They don't even call Hezekiah a king. They just say, that guy Hezekiah, don't let him fool you. The king, the real king, the king of Assyria, he's telling you to surrender. And so again, the my king is better than your king this is where it kind of leads up to is Rabshakeh is saying, we've got the king, and you guys just got some tiny little squatter in this village we're trying to overtake. And don't let him persuade you to trust God. And again, he kind of focusing his attack on Hezekiah at this moment, saying, Hezekiah, don't let him lead you astray. But the key word here is deliver, and that shows up, for he will not be able to deliver you. Do not let him make you trust. Do not trust that the Lord is saying, the Lord will surely deliver us. And so this deliverance is not going to come, is what Rabshakeh is trying to say.
On one hand, you're correct. He's not respecting Hezekiah as king, but on the other hand, he is, because I think you said from this point on they had taken over 42 cities, something like that. Well, I can't guarantee, but I'm pretty sure they didn't stop at each individual city and talk to them, trying to convince them to surrender. They probably just went in and took them over. Whereas here, with Hezekiah being the king, they're giving him some sort of respect by not just doing that, because 185,000 could walk all over him.
Yeah, and I think there is a recognition that if Jerusalem falls, that's the end of the battle, and if they can make, they can bring about the end of the battle without a long siege, because it would have taken some time and some expenditure of resources, even for 185,000 people to take over Jerusalem through its walls and fortifications. But you know what Assyria has to offer. He butters them up. He makes it sound good. You know, verse 16, you can go eat at your own home. You can drink from your own cistern. You can sleep in your own beds tonight if we end this today. But then verse 17 comes and says, until I come and take you into a land, to a new land, we will relocate you to the land we want you to live in. And that's what the Assyrian army did. That's where the Samaritan race came from. The Samaritan race came from the northern kingdom being taken over by the Assyrians, and they relocated them and forced them to intermarry with foreign nations. And so you have the Samaritans, who were looked down upon by the southern kingdom, which were the pure Jews, and they were no longer accepted as being pure because they'd intermarried with other races. And so and that's also why they had a kind of a smattering of the teaching of the old law. They knew about Moses, they knew about the 5 books of the law and those kind of things, because they had some ties to that through their ancestry, but they were not fully into that because it had been co-opted with other races and other religions as well. So what they're offering is peace, but it's peace with a great cost, and the cost was too great to bear, and so they can't accept what the Assyrians are offering here.
And so, yeah, he kind of highlighted the bottom point on the slide. You know, that's what these ancient kingdoms do. They come in and they just relocate all these people. And again, that's what eventually happens to even the southern kingdom and the Babylonian exile. And one of the things that I thought was, you know, just an interesting historical tidbit is, you know, these, I don't know if you call them, I've been calling them the emissaries of Hezekiah has told them, speak to us in Aramaic. They already sort of, at least the higher ups in their, you know, society, understand the languages of Aramaic, and that's how, you know, kind of Daniel and the Babylonian exile, they kind of, even some parts of Daniel are written in Aramaic, and how that is the language that is the most likely and fairly likely is what Jesus spoke, was because they have shifted from Hebrew to Aramaic over all of these different exiles and overtaking. And so I just thought it was interesting that the upper society were already well versed in the Aramaic language. But anyways, so again, Rabshakeh has taunted once more, saying, you know, these other gods of Hamath and Arpad, they haven't saved them. Samaria has gone down. Who is the Lord that he should deliver Jerusalem out of my hand? And the scribes, or I guess the recorder, the secretary, and the guy who was over the household, Eliakim, they all run home to Hezekiah to tell him. And so again, we have the response. I think that might need to, no, that is response 2. So we've got response 2 by Hezekiah and Isaiah. I did not copy the right.
Response to 37:1-7?
Yeah, 37:1-7.
Okay. All right. So, and when King Hezekiah heard it, he tore his clothes, covered himself with sackcloth, and entered the house of the Lord. Then he sent Eliakim, who was over the household, with Shebna the scribe and the elders of the priests, covered with sackcloth, to Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amoz. They said to him, thus says Hezekiah, this day is a day of distress, rebuke, and rejection, for children have come to birth, and there is no strength to deliver. Perhaps the Lord your God will hear the words of Rabshakeh, whom his master, the king of Assyria, has sent to reproach the living God, and will rebuke the words which the Lord your God has heard. Therefore offer a prayer for the remnant that is left. So the servants of King Hezekiah came to Isaiah, and Isaiah said to them, thus you shall say to your master, thus says the Lord, do not be afraid because of the words that you have heard, with which the servants of the king of Assyria have blasphemed me. Behold, I will put a spirit in him, so that he shall hear a rumor and return to his own land, and I will make him fall by the sword in his own land.
So the first response by Hezekiah, he identifies 3 different problems. This is a day of distress, of rebuke and of disgrace in the ESV. And these words are repeated throughout Isaiah to these like, the first word of distress from 33 verse 2 says, O Lord, be gracious to us. We wait for you. Be our arm every morning, our salvation in the time of trouble. The 30 and verse 6 talks about how there is a land of trouble and anguish from where the lioness and the lion, the adder and the flying fiery serpent. And so these three words are, heavily used throughout Isaiah to be just a continuation of how terrible, I guess, the situation is for them, because they've just been told, we're taking you down and there's nothing you can do about it. And so there's that. Hezekiah is, I guess, realizing just how terrible, how much of a pickle they're in. And so the key word for this chapter, verse 37, is here. And so, for 37 verse 1, as soon as King Hezekiah heard it, he went and did some things, because he heard the message that they sent. And then he talks about how the Lord your God has heard, therefore lift up your prayer for the remnant that is left. In verse 4, from verse 5 and 6, it talks about how, I guess, in 7, so that he shall hear a rumor and return to his own land. And so there is a lot of, and then I guess even into verse 8, as we continue on the chapter, Rabshakeh returned and found the king of Assyria fighting against Libnah, for he had heard that the king had left Lachish. And so there's a lot of hearing going on in this chapter. And this guy's hearing from this guy, and this guy's hearing from this guy. And so there's lots of things that are being talked about. But Hezekiah, again, the first response is, we're in trouble. And so he sends up a prayer saying, oh God, hear. He says, Assyria is mocking the living God and will rebuke the words that the Lord your God has heard. So let's lift up prayers and say, God, save a remnant. So there's Hezekiah's first response, and then Isaiah's response is, do not be afraid. Isaiah says, thus says the Lord, do not be afraid because of your words that you have heard. Again, there's our key word, heard. You've heard these things from Rabshakeh, and do not be afraid because of the things that you've heard, because the Lord will give him a rumor and he will return. And so verse 8, Rabshakeh returned. So there's the responses to that taunting that, the Lord has said, he's saying I don't exist and I'm not trying to help and I'm not going to deliver you, but do not be afraid because I will. And so good old, the rabble taunts again.
He's a taunter. Verses 8 through 13. Then Rabshakeh returned and found the king of Assyria fighting against Libnah, for he had heard that the king had left Lachish. When he heard them say concerning Tirhakah, king of Cush, he has come out to fight against you. And when he heard it, he sent messengers to Hezekiah, saying, thus you shall say to Hezekiah, king of Judah, do not let your God in whom you trust deceive you, saying, Jerusalem shall not be given into the hand of the king of Assyria. Behold, you have heard what the kings of Assyria have done to all the lands, destroying them completely. So will you be spared? Did the gods of those nations which my fathers have destroyed deliver them? Even Gozan and Haran and Reseph and the sons of Eden who were in Telassar? Where is the king of Hamath and the king of Arpad and the king of the city of Sepharvaim and of Hena and Iba?
So, good old Rabshakeh again. So Rabshakeh's return. So this taunt is kind of through Rabshakeh, but if you'll notice, there's a lot that's separating it. But now the king of Assyria, and then skip down and he sent messengers to Hezekiah. So the king of Assyria. So Sennacherib is saying through Rabshakeh. This is the message that he is declaring, and it's kind of his rap sheet, but also his, I don't know what you call that, interview application sort of a thing. Resume. That's the word. His resume. That's the word I was looking for. It's kind of his resume. It's like, look at all these people we've destroyed. We've destroyed this guy and this guy and this guy. Their gods didn't save them. My fathers, they've killed this king and this king and this king. Their gods didn't save them. And so the key words here is rely and deliver and trust. And he is, again, just constantly, do not let your God in whom you trust deceive you. Behold, you have heard, devoting them to destruction. And again, where are all of these kings? You've been trusting and relying on the wrong things. And so again, there's this resume of all these people that they've relied on their gods didn't deliver them. So your God isn't going to deliver you either. So he is issued again the final, this is kind of the final taunt that he is able to give here before the ultimate conclusion here at the end of the chapter. But we finally have, again, response number 3 in Hezekiah's prayer.
Verses 14 to 20. So then Hezekiah took the letter from the hand of the messengers and read it. And he went up to the house of the Lord and spread it out before the Lord. And Hezekiah prayed to the Lord, saying, O Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, who art enthroned above the cherubim, thou art the God, thou alone, of all the kingdoms of the earth. Thou hast made heaven and earth. Incline thine ear, O Lord, and hear. Open thine eyes, O Lord, and see, and listen to all the words of Sennacherib, who sent them to reproach the living God. Truly, O Lord, the kings of Assyria have devastated all the countries and their lands, and have cast their gods into the fire, for they were not gods, but the work of men's hands, wood and stone. So they have destroyed them. And now, O Lord our God, deliver us from his hand, that all the kingdoms of the earth may know that thou alone art God.
So again, he offers up this prayer. There's 3 different parts to it. It's kind of broken down. There's the doxology, which is just the outcrying of praise, if you will, for an easy way of remembering that. The doxology of just saying, O Lord, and again, I guess we'll come back to that slide, but he throws out these 10 different ideas about God. And I know some of them are kind of the exact same, said differently, but he says the Lord, that's in all caps, so that's Yahweh. So Yahweh, I am. O Lord, the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel. You're enthroned above the cherubim. Even these angels you're above them. You are the God. You alone are God of the kings, of all the kingdoms of the earth. You've made heaven and earth. Incline your ear, O Lord, and hear. Open your eyes, O Lord, and see. And hear all the words of Sennacherib, which he has sent to mock the living God. Truly, O Lord. And so again, he has just continued to pile on all of these different ideas and details about God and who he is. And I think one of the things that is kind of, I was thinking of a very fancy word, recapitulated, in his, I guess, condemnation of the other gods of the other people is they were made by human hands. So they are not Yahweh. They're not the Lord. They have no host that they're Lord over. They're not the God. They're not our God. They're not the God of Israel. They don't have a throne that is above the cherubim. They don't exist. You are the God. You alone are God. They don't even exist. They are the work of men's hands. They were no gods. And so again, you have this complete contrast between our God and their gods. And you're the living God. You actually made stuff. They were made by human hands. And so that's kind of the doxology, the complaint. Again, as we've read it, the Assyrians have laid waste to all these nations. They're going to try to lay waste to us. O Lord, save us from his hand, and that all kingdoms of earth may know that you alone are the Lord. And so that's the final petition, and that was Hezekiah's prayer. And as we continue to move on, there's the response number 4 by Isaiah's oracle.
21 to 29. It says, Then Isaiah the son of Amos sent word to Hezekiah, saying, Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, because you have prayed to me about Sennacherib, king of Assyria, this is the word that the Lord has spoken against him. She has despised you and mocked you, the virgin daughter of Zion. She has shaken her head behind you, the daughter of Jerusalem. Whom have you reproached and blasphemed, and against whom have you raised your voice, and haughtily lifted up your eyes against the Holy One of Israel? Though through your servants you have reproached the Lord, and you have said, With my many chariots I came up to the heights of the mountains, to the remotest parts of Lebanon, and I cut down its tall cedars and its choice cypresses, and I will go to its highest peak, its thickest forest. I dug wells and drank waters, and with the sole of my feet I dried up all the rivers of Egypt. Have you not heard? Long ago I did it, from ancient times I planned it. Now I have brought it to pass that you should turn fortified cities into ruinous heaps. Therefore their inhabitants were short of strength. They were dismayed and put to shame. They were as the vegetation of the field and as the green herb. as grass on the housetops is scorched before it is grown up. But I know you're sitting down, and you're going out, and you're coming in, and you're raging against me. Because of your raging against me, and because of your arrogance, and because your arrogance has come up to my ears, therefore I will put my hook in your nose and my bridle in your lips, and I will turn you back by the way which you came.
And so again, as we read back through there, I don't know if you caught all of the different pronouns in there, but I put on there it's a pronoun matching game. Because in the beginning, it says she despises you and she scorns you, the virgin daughter of Zion. And so I guess, backing up to verse 21, the Lord God has said, because Hezekiah has prayed to me concerning Sennacherib, this is the word that the Lord's going to say. So she is Jerusalem. So Jerusalem despises you. The you there is Sennacherib. Jerusalem despises Sennacherib. Jerusalem scorns Sennacherib. Jerusalem wags her head behind Sennacherib. And again, Sennacherib is a very, very key role in all of this, what comes to follow. But again, it talks about whom have you, again, back to Sennacherib. Whom has Sennacherib mocked and reviled? Against whom has Sennacherib raised his voice and lifted his eyes to the heights? Against the Holy One of Israel. So Sennacherib, you've raised your eyes against me. By your servants, Sennacherib, you have mocked the Lord. And you have said, with my chariots, I've gone up, and then it continues, I've dug wells and drank waters. But have you not heard, Sennacherib, that I, the Lord God, determined it long ago, I've planned from days of old, and now I bring it to pass, that you, Sennacherib, should make fortified cities crash to heaps of ruins. And so it's just very difficult to, kind of place all of these different key pieces, but the entire theme of it all is the Lord has said, your arrogance, Sennacherib, is your downfall. And, I know what you've been doing. I know where you've been. I know, again, extending this a little further, I know your fathers before you. I know all these people that you've destroyed, but this is where it stops. You've come up against me, and I am too big for you, of an obstacle for you. So I'm going to put my hook in your nose and my bit in your mouth and turn you back the way which you came. And it's kind of paralleling what Isaiah just said in 37, that, he will return to his own land. And so anyways, there's this continuing theme that they're going to go back. So that's the oracle, that's the prophecy that has been given. And so we have, again, a response to the prophecy, the sign and praise of Isaiah.
Verses 30 to 35. And this shall be the sign for you. You shall eat this year what grows of itself. In the second year, what springs from the same. And in the third year, sow, reap, plant vineyards, and eat their fruit. And the surviving remnant of the house of Judah shall again take root downward and bear fruit upward. For out of Jerusalem shall go forth a remnant, and out of Mount Zion survivors. The seal of the Lord of hosts shall perform this. Therefore, thus says the Lord concerning the king of Assyria, he shall not come to this city, nor shoot an arrow there, neither shall he come before it with a shield, nor throw up a mound against it. By the way that he came, by the same he shall return, and he shall not come to this city, declares the Lord. For I will defend this city to save it for my own sake, and for my servant David's sake.
Okay, so there's a sign and praise. The sign is this. Nature is going to prove that God's at work. And so there's not going to be a siege. You guys are not going to stay here for very long. I mean, yes, you guys are here, but the people of Israel are going to eat what grows. The second year, they're going to eat whatever comes from that. And then the third year, harvest is back. I mean, within 3 years, the land is going to be back to normal. You're not going to, you normally, when you conquer and destroy places, it takes them a while to recover from that. But God is saying that there's not even going to be an extensive recovery time because of how powerful I am in correcting this arrogant attitude that you've had. And so nature is the proof that God's going to be at work, and that is the sign that's going to come before you. The praise by Isaiah that is given is, this praise that, the remnant, where to go? I was just reading it here. Out of Jerusalem shall go a remnant, out of Mount Zion a band of survivors. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will do this. And so, Isaiah is praising God for what he's going to do because, again, the siege isn't going to last very long. It's going to be over quickly because of what God's going to do. And, there's not even going to be an arrow shot against it or a shield or a siege mound that comes up against this city because of God. And, we could discuss how they would have received this, but, I assume it would be with glad tidings, but, we should move on to get to the very end here. Finally, there's the ultimate conclusion. This is the fun part, I guess. Maybe not fun, but God is delivering. So the last three verses, I guess, of Isaiah 37.
Then the angel of the Lord went out and struck 185,000 in the camp of the Assyrians. And when men rose early in the morning, behold, all of these were dead. So Sennacherib, king of Assyria, departed and returned home and lived at Nineveh. It came about as he was worshiping in the house of Nisroch his god, that Adramelech and Sharezer his sons killed him with the sword, and they escaped into the land of Ararat. And Esarhaddon his son became king in his place.
So the conclusion, the angel of the Lord struck them all down one night, and Sennacherib had to run home with his tail between his legs, and his sons struck him down with a sword, and that's how this ends. And we have, again, there's historical evidence for this that happens, and anyway, so that's the end of the narrative, really. There's a couple more, Isaiah 38 and 39 has a different flavor to it, but this is the kind of the culmination of the last 13 or maybe it's 14 verses of, I think it's from 24 all the way to 39 or so is the ultimate conclusion that this is kind of based around. And so there's some parallels here. In Isaiah 37 verse 1, Hezekiah tears his clothes, covered himself, and goes into the house of the Lord. It's the exact same thing that Sennacherib does. Sennacherib goes home and goes into his temple of Nisroch. Nisroch. I don't know how you say the name. Nisroch. Anyways, you probably pronounce it better. But he goes into his temple of Nisroch. But Nisroch didn't save him. There was nothing that Nisroch could have done. And this, again, fulfilling the prophecy that God had said. He will go back to his own city and be killed there. And so this is the ultimate conclusion. This is what happens. This is where it leads. Boom, it goes.
Sennacherib doesn't even get the glory of falling on the battlefield. I mean, that, for a king, if a king has to die, he wants to die in battle. He wants to die, after defending his kingdom or something like that. He doesn't even get that honor. And he doesn't even outlive his false god. So it's a pretty ignominious end for him.
So Hezekiah's died. Let's see here. Well, I don't know where my other slide went, but anyways, there was another slide that I had in there that talked about the 185,000 people that were killed by the angel of the Lord. And so one angel, obviously the angel of the Lord, that's a special case that there is some speculation as this angel of the Lord could be Jesus before he was made flesh, and there's a big discussion about that. But it's an angel of the Lord. That's all we know for sure. And so he is an angel of the Lord, and he killed 185,000 guys. And Matthew, I'm pretty sure my slide is gone, but I think I remember Matthew 26 and verse 53. I just wanted to read that just because I thought it was fun to talk about when Jesus could have called 10,000 angels. But so that the betrayal and arrest of Jesus. So Judas is coming up. He's kissed him, and they've seized Jesus. And Matthew 26:51. And behold, one of those who were with Jesus stretched out his hand and drew his sword and struck the servant of the high priest, cut his ear off. Jesus said to him, "Put your sword back in its place, for all who take the sword will perish by the sword." Verse 53. Do you not think that I cannot appeal to my Father, and he will at once send me more than 12 legions of angels? And the number for the amount of people generally in a legion, according to the Romans, was anywhere, the lowest number was 4,200 people, and usually higher than that, around 5,000, as much as 6,000, depending on the need of the time. And so 12 times 4,200 was 50,400. So he could have called 50,000 angels. Doesn't make near as good of a song, though. So
Yeah.
10,000 is just as good. So he could have called 10,000 and many, many more. But anyways, I just thought that was funny, and I wanted to point that out. And then there's some themes there for good sake. There's hope in the Lord. The siege was not overnight, even though the victory was. They had to kill a whole bunch of cities before they ended up dying. The remnant was preserved. Our God is greater. Our King is greater. And I guess we can skip over some of these. Their similarities. We talked about that. Next week, read Isaiah 38 and 39. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you.